All right, welcome back, everyone. So again, where we left off before, we had our Frankenstein number 4 here. We've been through 1, 2, 3 at the top, and number 4 over here. So this one now, I'm going to go ahead and hit that expand button so we see him. So he's just all there. That was that 3-color one. Now with our next Frankenstein, this one right here on this side over here, we're going to click him again, and I'll go ahead and do a Control plus here and kind of zoom in on him. Let's go back up to our image trace panel up here in the top here and go down. Now, we looked at certainly shades of gray, and that's really what we've been doing here is basically all shades of gray. But let's take a look at some of the other ways in which it can look. Now, the reason that we use this little pop-down menu down here is because it takes all the tools in Illustrator and it fine-tunes them to the description that you see here. So if I go ahead and change this to black and white logo, let's go ahead and do this one. And we'll say OK. And give it a second. It's just going to turn into black and white only. Boom. Look at that. So now what we can do is certainly we can go ahead back over to our threshold here, and we can change that a little bit. Let's go ahead and go more. Ooh, really dark over there. But let's take the paths and take those down, and take the corners, and we'll take those down also. Boy, he sure looks haunting there, doesn't he? Our corners down. We'll take our noises, we'll take that down. There we go. So now we're really, really dark here. But now let's go ahead and change it the other way. Let's go ahead and go threshold. Let's go ahead and go less. Let's open this up and see what we get. See if we experiment. Ah, look at that. We get quite a bit more of good old Frank up there. Look at that. There we go. So if we experiment with that, we can actually play with that just a little bit more or less. What if we leave it like this, and I take those noises and we crank them all the way to the top? Let's see if we get any choice there. Yeah, we did get a little bit. So there's with the noise and without the noise. See right there? See that difference between it? One gives us a little bit more of a filter, and the other one is a little less filtered. So look at that, it cleans that up again. So again, now what if I go back in and we say we add more paths? We take the paths. Now if we go paths all the way, it's going to go black. All right, it'll darken it up almost so it's too much in some cases. We take the corners up, right? There we go. So we get blacker and blacker, right? And we get darker, and all we get is that really cool, just the extreme white areas there on his face. Look at that. So you got everybody, this gives you a good idea of what we can do with this simple, again, just the black and white, playing with the line work on this, and seeing what we can get. Okay, let's pull that back a little bit more. There we go. We'll leave that at the black and white. So that's our black and white Frank. Now let's go ahead. We're going to leave this one. I'm going to go ahead and hit the expand button, which leaves it right where it's at. Click off the side here. And again, like I said before, we can change color. So like I said, like if I use the white arrow and I click just the white area in here, and I pick a, say maybe, I go ahead and go with a green. See how it selects all that? If I click just the black area, and I select that and go, ooh, let's go purple. And really have some fun and change those colors up quite a bit. So anyway, so this is our low black and white one. We just throw in some simple color in there. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over to our next one here. Now this Frank over here, let's go ahead and take a little bit a different cue with this one. If I click on him once, okay, he's activated. We can see our white area selected here. We go to our drop-down panel, and now we can go ahead and check with, instead of just black and white logo, let's go to sketched art. Let's see what it looks like if it has to take a black and white gray tone photo and convert it into sketched art. Now, I will say that if you're using sketched art is the best one literally to use for all your sketches when you bring a sketch in. Now that's sketched art. So sketched art is looking for more line work. It's very similar to the black and white, isn't it? So if I can go back, do it a little bit more higher with the threshold, right? A little bit lower with that. And you'll see the two of those really are quite close, aren't they? They really are quite close to what we were doing before. Okay? So we'll go ahead and leave that one. So let's go ahead and expand it, just so you know kind of the differences between them. Now let's go ahead now, and I'm going to hold my space bar and left click, and I'm dragging over to the next row over. And let's go to this one right here. So I select him, and we have all the white selected up here on the side here. Let's go up to our image trace panel again right here. Click on the drop down arrow, and let's go ahead and go to silhouette. Okay, let's see what we get when we click silhouette. Now silhouette will generally give you, silhouette will generally give you a black and white, okay, but it goes for larger areas also. There we go. See how we're getting something very, very similar to what we had before? Silhouette is a really good one for converting things just into just a solid black and white. And what Silhouette does is it automatically tries to simplify and strip out any detail right from the get-go. That's sort of the difference between that and, say, the Sketch, which looks for more detail. But again, we're playing with the presets on the panels here. So I stretch that. So you notice I go to all of these paths on low. I'll take the threshold, which is the main one, bring that down. Boom, and we get just that. So you can see they're very, very similar, but a little bit different. Yeah. All right, so we're going to go ahead and expand this one. Click off the side. Done. We're good with that one. Now, let's go over to the middle one here. And for this one, let's go ahead and select it again to activate it. Go to the image drop-down. But this is where it's going to get a little funky. Let's check line art. Go ahead and say OK. And for line art, wait till you see what happens with line art. Not so much, huh? Because it's really trying to find lines, and there really aren't any consistent lines in this because it's all these gray tones. So we can certainly go more, or we can go less with our line work. But from that, we're seeing just more or less. If I go less, right, we're really going to just disappears. So we're not going to get very much from that. I can crank it up all the way, but it's really always going to kind of look weird. Now, line work works really well if you're doing like architectural drawings, right? Because the program is looking for that. It's looking for those super fine details. But right now, all it's finding is just these sort of larger clustered gray tones, and it's all trying to convert them just into just some dots or lines that just sort of stop. They don't really go anywhere too much. All right, so we're going to leave this one here. I'm going to say expand, just so you get an idea of the fact that when you're working or converting a photograph, that the tool that we use for that, which is the line art, does not work at all when you're trying to work with photographs in this way. It doesn't really convert well at all. So let's go ahead for a tone photograph. So let's go to the last one here on the right. And for this one, what I'm going to do is hit the drop-down menu and click on this guy here. And let's go to technical drawing this time. Okay, and architectural, right? So we're in that again. We're in that architectural phase. Once again, boom. We're not getting the kind of output that we'd like to see where we're getting lots of gray tones because it's looking for hard, sharp, really fine line work. So again, when you're trying to convert a photograph with a lot of gradations, a lot of gray tones in things, using for your tracing results, right? Using the line is just not going to work, right? You want sketched art, or you want the gray tones, right? Or silhouette. Those are the ones going to give you much better. So if I go Control or Command minus and zoom out here, I click this once, Command minus. There we go. I zoom out. You can kind of get the variations here. Now let me go ahead and just expand that one. There we go. So you kind of get where we're at here with these different tools that we've used so far. If I click on this bottom one here, and again, we get these down below here. So we have all these different ones that we've used. Now, what I'd like you to do with the bottom three that are remaining here is I'd like you to experiment a little bit with this. I'd like you to experiment. Perhaps go back to the ones that did work well. Maybe the color ones, okay? Perhaps the colors, and go ahead and try reapplying new colors to the heads on the three bottom ones. So, for instance, let's go ahead and pick a 3 color for that one that's on there. Say OK, and it'll apply a 3 color to it. And what happens is once it finishes with the progress here, I'm going to zoom into it, and then I'll start adjusting or playing with the colors a little bit. That's what I'd like you to do too with yours. Okay, now I've got to get converted, so I'm going to go ahead and Control or Command, depending upon what you have, Mac or PC. And I'm going to zoom in. Right there, it goes right up to it. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to expand it. And with it expanded now, I can go ahead and play with some of these areas of lights and darks. So let's say here on this one, let's go ahead and play with my eraser tool. So let's go ahead here first. I'm going to take away all the stuff that's around his head. So I'm going to go ahead and do a line right here. And I'll trace that off right there. That cuts off from the top of the head out. Let's see. I think all the rest that I kind of like. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my white arrow here and click and drag a box around that stuff that's there. Hit delete twice. Select that, and I'll left click and drag a box right there. And notice it's separating it by color. So I can left click and drag a little rectangle around it and then double click. And now I've pretty much gotten rid of everything. I can test that by just using the white arrow and click and drag a box around it. Yeah, there's two little spots here. There's a little one over here, delete. I think there was one over here, delete. There we go. So now I'm just with Frank's head. So now let's maybe throw some color in there. Well, let's go ahead first and I'll just play with that. And well, you know what? I'm going to leave it alone. Let's go down with. Let's say that's a dumb one right there. I just basically experimented with cropping out the background around Frank. Let's go on to the next one. Hold my space bar and drag over. Now with the middle one here, let's try this again. So I'm going to select him once, and then I'm going to go ahead and do my image trace, and I'll do that 3 color again. Say OK. By the way, that little pop-up window that I keep saying say OK on, it actually is, it's just telling me that it's going to take a few moments to process the image because there are a lot of gray tones. There's a little dummy box on there that just says, do not tell me that again. So I'll probably select it on the next one just to show you how to turn that off. Okay, so with this one here, I've got my face up here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit, before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and up here and say, oh, my paths, I'm going to take those down, my corners, then I'll take those down. I'm going to remove all that stuff, try to get as much of that detail out of there and try to simplify it as much as possible. So let's go ahead and bring that down. It's thinking about all those things, clustering, grabbing, putting all those shapes together, reformatting. There we go. Take the corners, take that down. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the noise filter. And let's get rid of some of that noise that's there. Bum, 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 bum. It's always fun to watch little bars go by. There we go. Path and smoothing and curve fitting. There we are. Now that noise, I crank that up. Give that a second. Take a moment here, and as soon as we get done with this one, then I'm going to go ahead and once again, I'm going to pull some things out and I'm going to change some stuff. So the first thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and pull out the background like I did before. So now I've cleaned it up quite a bit, got rid of a lot of the details in here, got lots of great coloring in here. Maybe I'll go back the other way. Let's try this. Put the noise all the way down the other way. Let's see what we get. It's always fun to play. That's what a lot of this program is you know, going in, trying a few of these things and seeing what you can come up with. So I go about the noises the other way. There we go, path and curve. And there we go. All right, pretty good there. So I guess we'll keep it this way. So I'm going to go ahead and say expand, as always, when we're done with it. Now I'm going to go ahead and do some deletion and some subtraction here. So I'm going to go back in with my eraser tool and do that left click trick and drag around the top of his head again. Right? And then I'm going to go ahead and use that white arrow and left click and drag. Ooh, look at that gray goes right into his face this time. Look at that with the settings I've got there. I need to be careful and pull that out of there. So I'm going to go back and use that eraser tool, which is totally fine. Go ahead and use that thing anytime you need to. It's okay. What's nice with the eraser is that it actually will go back in and separate out the areas that you're drawing or working from, and we'll separate them into the other areas. So back into here, back into there, and then I can take this right down to there. Look at that, beautiful. Now I can go ahead and finish it off on this side. Up and over and down. All right, so now I go ahead and select this background area again with that white arrow. Left click and drag, delete, and delete. Look at that, pulling all that stuff out of there. There we go. Now I can go ahead and click on an area, say this space right here, and throw some color in. Boom. Throw some color in here. So all those areas that have that similar gray tone, I can go ahead and throw some color into those, or I can select multiple. So I can go ahead and do the following. Okay, so the last part here, you can see that I've gone ahead and colored, and I've added black at the bottom, and I've gone ahead and added the greens in on the face. So you do the same thing for yours and color them up, and we'll come back to the last one, and I'll see you in a few minutes.